So today we have Shoto Todoroki from My Hero Academia taking on Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. Who wins? Let's find out. So, let's briefly talk about their physicality. Well, for Todoroki, he has barely any strength feats to note, like barely. He was able to easily drag Stain with a rope by himself, and he did place second in the physical exam to get into UA. That's about it. He's remained conscious after being hit with 5% punches from Deku that sent him flying, Ida's reciprocal burst kick to the head, being burned by Dabi, several hits from Tetsu, who is a literal metalhead, being stabbed in the arm by two knives, and Gang Orca's ultrasonic wave attack, and he was the number 10 hero. He also survived Dabi's flashfire fist, Bakugo's howitzer impact, which caused an explosion bigger than the stadium they were fighting in, and he also endured boiling hot water being dropped on his eye when he was like 5, permanently scarring his eye. And he's very fast, dodging energy blast, Dabi's fire blast, multiple rapid strikes from Stain, who is insanely fast, a 100% finger flick from Deku, and he countered a lunge from Bakugo, who is described to have lightning fast reflexes. His ice is also incredibly fast, as he's froze a group of villains the instant they warped into the battle, and he's created small mountain-sized ice walls in less than a second. More on his ice later, though. But Zuko has restrained and lifted people with one arm, shattered a wooden stool with a punch, and snapped a steel chain with a kick. He's gotten back up after a blast from Aang and Azula, being blasted through a wall, and being blasted by his father so bad that it left a permanent scar on his eye. He survived point-blank explosions and improperly redirecting lightning. He's ran up walls, kicked away thrown arrows, deflected an arrow, dodged Sokka's boomerang, a sword strike from behind, and he's redirected and intercepted lightning. So, I'd say Zuko is stronger, Todoroki is tougher, and speed is pretty even. Zuko is also the more skilled fighter, as he was trained in acrobatics, martial arts, and swordsmanship. But now, let's get on to the really fun part, the real reason why you clicked on the video. Zuko's firebending versus Todoroki's icy hot quirk. Let's start with Todoroki, because there's a lot more to talk about here. His quirk allows him to project ice with his right side of his body and fire from his left side. It's the perfect balance between hot and cold, as it keeps him from over-freezing or overheating. With his ice, he's created absolute massive walls of ice, much, much larger than most buildings. These ice barrages are so powerful that Deku has to flick with his current 100% of his power to destroy them. He's froze a massive horde of robots, a giant monster, froze a Nomu to the point it cracked in half, blocked Chimera's fire and laser with an ice wall, and with a barrage of ice, he clashed with Gang Orca, who was at the time the number 10 hero, like I said earlier. He's created large ice ramps, and he can even increase his movement speed by creating a sheet of ice on the ground with his right foot, and more or less ice skating across it. Releasing a massive wave of ice is how he starts almost every fight, and he prefers his ice over his fire, which does make him predictable. But with the barrage being so massive and ice and fast, it is hard to counter unless you have a specific quirk to do so. And with his fire, he's created an inferno in an alleyway, caused a forest fire, eventually hurt Tetsu, who is made out of steel, and was able to eventually knock him out. And he even received training by sitting in a furnace, specifically to have a great endurance to fire. And when he collided with Deku at his current 100% during the sports festival, it caused an absolute massive explosion. And that was when That was when that one teacher actually decreased the impact by placing 5 big concrete walls in between them. If he hadn't done that, the explosion would have been even bigger. Uh, when he's quote unquote ice skating, he can make himself even faster by blasting fire behind him. All Might even said his fire was on par with his dad's Endeavor. He can use both of his powers, or his ice and his fire at the same time, but it uses more energy to do so. Also, although using his ice and fire keeps him from overheating and overfreezing, which increases his limit with both of them, it's still just one quirk, which are still physical abilities, which will wear him out if he overuses them. It's like exercising. Eventually, you'll get exhausted and will have to stop or risk hurting yourself. But now let's talk about Zuko's firebending. Being the son of the Fire Lord means he was extensively trained in firebending since a young age to be his Fire Lord Ozai's successor eventually. As he matured, his fire power grew significantly, and he eventually mastered it, as well as lightning redirection. He's projected a fire blast that sent 3 people flying. One blast, 3 people. He's exploded a crystal, blasted through walls, roofs, and blasted furniture apart, and even blasted through solid stone. He's used his fire to block fire blasts, air blasts, and an explosion that destroyed a large ship. He's reformed 3 firebenders' blasts into a fire tornado. He can create fire constructs like fire walls, daggers, and whips. He's matched Azula, who was a much more aggressive fighter and firebender. He can even breathe fire. He was able to match Katara when she was amped by the full moon, and even eventually melt through her ice prison / cage. His fire is also stronger or weaker depending on the sun and the weather. He's also redirected both Azula's and Firelord Ozai's lightning. So, who wins? Well, it's obvious Todoroki has more raw power with his ice and fire. He's just demonstrated higher levels of power. But Zuko is more skilled and versatile with his fire than Todoroki is with his. He can also bend any fire Shoto sends at him, and if Zuko can make this into a close quarters fight with his swords, he'd have the advantage as Todoroki primarily attacks from a distance. But if Zuko does get in close, Todoroki isn't out of the fight yet, as he was able to fight against the hero killer Stain when he got in close. And he was definitely a more lethal and dangerous swordsman than Zuko is. Another thing is that Zuko can't just produce a flame. He has to move a specific way to project fire. He has to bend it. That's how all bending works. If he's restrained by an ice barrage and can't move, he will be done for. Yes, he was able to escape Katara's ice cage, but that's because he could still move to some degree. When Azula was completely frozen, she couldn't melt her way out because she couldn't move. She was frozen. And I think this is how this fight would go, because Todoroki's ice barrages are so massive and move so fast, I have a hard time believing Zuko would be able to dodge or counter each of them, like every single one of them. This is a fun, interesting fight, considering the 1, fire, and 2, both of them have scars on their eyes. This would be a good match between raw power and skill. But at the end of the day, I do believe Shoto Todoroki will get the upper hand over Zuko, and at least eventually win. It'll take him some time. Like I said, his Zuko is more skilled and versatile with his fire than Shoto is. But at the end of the day, Shoto Todoroki's ice is the key, and I believe he'll use it to perfection and get the win. Todoroki wins. Like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Leave a comment of what you think and hit the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos and other great stuff. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.